there, Zelda faithful. I know that you're as hyped as I am when it comes to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. And when it comes to the sequel to my personal favorite Zelda game now, there is a lot of things missing from the original that seems to be returning now, and the most important of which is the King of Evil, Ganondorf. I mean, sure, we got Ganon, Calamity Ganon in the original, but I want the Dwarf. But when it comes to seeing the 2 trailers of Breath of the Wild 2 that are out now, more and more ideas keep popping into my head that while this seems to be Ganondorf in the flesh, the more and more I think about it, it might just be that, the flesh. Like literally, at this point I'm starting to believe that Demise is returning in Breath of the Wild 2 and using Ganondorf's flesh like a burlap sack to run around in Hyrule again. And funny enough, a theory like this was entertained from the first Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, but as we can see, this being is obviously Ganondorf, or was Ganondorf at one time, thanks to the red hair, the features, the Gerudo jewelry and accessories. But now with the second trailer, and the fact that Skyward Sword is apparently going to be very important when relating to Breath of the Wild 2, I feel like Ganondorf's remains are being taken over by Demise. And while it could be argued that is what Ganondorf has always been, a vessel, a container for Demise's hatred, from what we've seen in Skyward Sword and Zelda games past such as Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess, Demise and Ganondorf both have distinct personalities. And while Ganondorf is not particularly an offshoot of Demise, he is indeed the reincarnation of his hatred, and due to that is granted power and vision and thirst for the Triforce. But when we apply what happens in Skyward Sword and the original Breath of the Wild going into Breath of the Wild 2, it does seem like Demise will be rolling back in the realm of Hyrule in order to continue his quest for the Triforce and finish the job that he started in Skyward Sword. Because honestly, thinking about it, at the end of Breath of the Wild, the original, Ganon was sealed away by Zelda's sealing power, defeated by the likes of the Master Sword, Link, and Zelda. And it's highly suspected that Zelda's sealing power is indeed drawn from the Triforce. Now that's very important, keep that in mind. And honestly, Ganondorf and Ganon are one and the same, it's just that Ganondorf would become Ganon when his power is at its highest, supposedly. So it could be argued that these remains that we see in the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer is the true source of Calamity Ganon. And that although he seems to be sealed, Malice is still leaking out of his being from the various holes that were revealed in the second Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. And since Zelda sealed away what leaked out of this carcass, then for all things considered, case in point, the enemy known as Ganon, who was Ganondorf, is gone. For now at least, and it usually takes a very long time for Ganon to return in some way, shape, or form when it comes to the chapters of Zelda's history. So going off that logic, this corpse should not be able to reanimate itself for any reason unless another host is taking it. That host being Demise, which can be hinted at with various points such as his red piercing eyes, which goes along with his designs from Skyward Sword, the fact that his eyes appeared with an X symbol, which goes along with the scar on his forehead, and the fact that whenever we hear him speaking or making noise for that matter, the grunts feel very animalistic and demonic, going in line with his terrifying bellows that you've heard from Demise and even the Imprisoned. But of course, this can all be considered conjecture unless I add some more spice to this mix and bring some nice info to the table. Here is something heavy to consider when we're looking at this entity from Breath of the Wild 2 and how he may have come to return as Demise in the flesh of Ganondorf. It's because 2 major important components were brought to him, literally. The first being Princess Zelda, who contains the blood of the goddess and is the goddess reincarnated. In Skyward Sword, Demise was able to use the soul of Princess Zelda as the imprisoned to resume his form of the Demon King. And it looks to me in Breath of the Wild 2 that Demise could want seconds. But something like that would only make sense if a portion of Demise, the actual Demise, not Ganondorf, was still within this corpse. And let's say that it wasn't. Well, that's fine, because that comes with the second thing that was brought to this corpse, and that is the Master Sword on Link's back. While the Master Sword was able to defeat Demise in Skyward Sword, it wasn't able to completely destroy him, as we saw that his remains were absorbed into the sword where it was supposedly decaying slowly over time, maybe a little too slow. And that would make sense if his remains are still alive and kicking in a sense within the Master Sword, as Fi's description of Demise states, this eternal being has conquered time itself. And while we weren't able to make sense of this from the first Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, in the second Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, it seemed that the Malice reacted to Demise's lingering remains that could still be in the Master Sword and took it, along with Link's arm. And with the Master Sword taken and the essence of Demise extracted and the soul stolen from Zelda, all Demise would need at this point is a vessel. And here we have it, Ganondorf's corpse. And with the growing importance of having Skyward Sword being related to Breath of the Wild 2 with the release of Skyward Sword HD and the revelation of the sky in the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, it seems that another huge element could return in Breath of the Wild 2, and that element being Demise himself, which would give way to another element, that element being the Triforce. And from what we saw in Skyward Sword, that is the only thing that we've seen it truly destroy Demise. And if the Triforce is truly hidden away within the skies once again, it will be a race against time for Link to reclaim the Triforce, restore Zelda's soul, and destroy Demise once and for all in this timeline, or have Demise truly achieve his dream of gaining the Triforce and putting all of existence under his foot for eternity. But at the same time, how exactly did Ganondorf's corpse get to the underground? Well, that's a theory for next time. And if you're down for that, please like, share, most importantly, subscribe to HMK for more Zelda content and theories every week. Leave a comment of what you thought about the theory in the comment section below. And if you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, check out my info in the description box below. And thanks to all my supporters for helping making this video happen. So until the next theory, this has been HMK, and I'll check you guys later.